Morning and welcome to lecture number 8. How is everybody doing? Glad to hear it. We're covering 2 topics today. Well, 3 really. We're going to look at Kagan chapter 4, right? We're going to talk about your CFP choice, and I'm going to show you how to submit that. And then we're also going to talk about quote burgers, which aren't actually due until after spring break. So, wow, that's coming up. All right, first thing I want to do, pull up the syllabus for you. So you see, this is where we're at, February 25th, lecture number 8, which you're sitting through right now, Kagan chapter 4, which you've already read, because you're awesome, and CFP choice due this week. So, if I look at this CFP that I was thinking about submitting to, right? This is Ohio State University's Medieval and Renaissance Graduate Student Association, accepting abstracts for its conference Bodies in Motion. It is accepting papers on the following subjects, right? Say I want to deal specifically with ekphrasis, which is the description of art, essentially. I need to submit no more than 250 words in an abstract, right? So the first thing that I would like you to do, right, is to save this page for me. So I'm going to save it as a PDF, right? And I'm going to put my first initial and my last name, and then CFP. I'm going to save that to the desktop. So now I have a copy on the desktop of this page, right? So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my email. Compose a new email. Gonna send it to myself. CFP choice. All right. So I've composed my email. Going to attach from my computer, right? And I'm going to find the thing, A. Albright CFP, attach it, and then all I have to do is press send, right? So it shouldn't take you any more time than that to do your CFP choice. I'm not going to ask you to explain your CFP choice. I think that often we don't always go to the best conference for us. But then we find a whole new way of sort of discovering who we are as academics, because we end up getting into situations where we say, okay, well, I've been to the MLA conference. I'm not really sure that I like the MLA conference, right? Or I've been to 4Cs, and I don't know if I like 4Cs. It sort of feels a little weird. And that's the beginning of your professionalization process, right? Because then you can start to feel out which organizations you think you should be a part of and which ones you don't really want to. There's plenty for everybody to say, I'm going to participate in this organization, but not this other one, right? There's plenty of organizations out there for you to go ahead and become a part of one and not a part of the other, right? So, as long as you're conscientious and you understand that there are things that you don't want to completely ignore as a part of your field, um, chances are you'll be fine in choosing one over the other. So this week, submit your CFP choice. Um, Now there is some consequence to your choice, because I am going to offer you all extra credit. The extra credit is available if you submit your IMRAD paper to the CFP that you select, right? So I want you to choose a CFP that you can write for right now, yeah? And that you think that you could create a research paper that they would want to publish. Now, most of these CFPs are going to ask for an abstract, not not a full paper, right? So if you're submitting to a thing that wants the abstract, right, I expect you to include that in your paper, yeah, so that I can tell that you've submitted, yeah, and then I want you to send me a screenshot of the email that you submit uh, your paper to, or your paper with, um, or a copy of a screenshot of the submission place. But that's not right now, right? We've still got some groundwork to lay before we're doing the MRAD paper. But I want you to put that in the back of your mind, because your CFP choice is consequential. It's somewhere where you may be accepted to go there. Travel will most likely be at your own expense. Uh, and you may be selected to go there to present or to deliver a paper. All right, so um, that's all I want to say about CFP choice for now. Kagan chapter 4, right? So we've got our Kagan book, yeah. Chapter 4 is Kagan's second chapter on social sciences, and you'll find that he spends the majority of the chapter talking about economics. You'll get to wrestle with the 3 = 2 problem, which is a wonderful problem, but it illustrates one of the things that he's on about in this chapter, which is trying to give you some exposure to economic theory. Um, Chapter covers some theory, so theory in general in most topics, in most disciplines. Basically provides you a set of instructions, or a set of assumptions of truth that you as a scholar can test, right? So if you apply a given theory to your work, right, then in some ways you're testing that theory, yeah, because you're testing its truthfulness, its validity. Yeah. So say I like game theory that I read about in chapter 4, and I want to apply that to a given experiment. Well, if I find that game theory doesn't do a very good job at explaining why I got the results that I got, then I might write that up and say, well, game theory was inadequate at this point, right? And somebody else might respond, well, you didn't use it right, or they might respond uh, that they agree with you, that they tried it in their experiment and also got an odd result that's not really explained by the theory. Um, so, also, in this chapter, there is a section that I think uh, is important for you all to make note of. And that is one that talks about the decisions we make in economics, especially with regard to policy. Um, so, one question that I would like you to answer for your composition book this week is, what's the problem with cost benefit analysis as the sole decision maker behind a lot of our decisions? Um, so if you read more in the chapter, you'll find out what I mean by that. There is one section where Kagan talks about cost benefit analysis and its weaknesses. But if you think about it just on a human level, right? Do we really want people making decisions based solely on what makes them the most money, right? Uh, so that's one of the questions that I want you to consider for this week. Um, so I am going to be doing a grade pass this afternoon. So I'll pass through and look to make sure that I've got the most recent. Excuse me. That I've got the most recent grades up for you. So if you've turned something in after you've already gotten a 0 or a half credit in the grade book, I will fix that for you. Covered extra credit. Quote burgers. So I'm going to put this online, but I do want to describe it a little bit for you because we will be turning these in eventually, right? So the Noble Quote Burger is essentially how I would like you to write quotes in your papers, right? So your quote should end up looking something like this down here, yeah? You start with the top button, that is introducing the quote, right? In his work, The Three Cultures, Jerome Kagan writes. It's pretty simple. What you're doing is giving your reader some context, right? Where is this quote coming from? Yeah? The meat and stuff, I'm not a big eater of the stuff, but I like the meat in the middle, right? Is the quote, right? A change in the smallest detail of procedure often produces a distinctive outcome, right? On its own, that seems like it would be a consequential quote, right? It seems like it's something important, but you have to unpack it for your reader. So your summary should often be a little bit longer or even double as long as your quote, right? So the bottom bun is your summary. Here, Kagan refers to procedures in a study, whereas small changes may not usually make a significant difference in the daily tasks of our lives. Here, Kagan makes the point that research is unique in that it does, right? And you see in the sentence down here, I've included the citation, right? So that's on page 143 in the Kagan book. Yeah. So the reason I have you do these quote burgers is that it gives you some context. It gives the reader some guidepost as to why you're using a given quote. It doesn't just drop the quote in and expect you to understand what it means, because not everybody thinks alike, right? So if you drop in a quote knowing full well what it means to you, right, that's all well and good. But that doesn't mean that I know what it means to you, right? So when you use a quote in your paper, yeah, you have to make sure that you're dropping those guideposts for your reader, so that they know, and they know how to follow your logical line, right? How to follow what you're trying to say with each quote, yeah, because you're developing an argument, yeah. So again, those quote burgers aren't going to be due until the week of March 18th through the 22nd. but I wanted you to start thinking about how to do them, right? So, again, this week CFP choice due Friday at midnight. 11:59 p.m. Um, for this week's writing prompts, I do want you to answer that question: what's the problem with cost benefit as a sole decision maker? Um, and for a second one, I would like you to write about a conference that you would like to go to. This can be a sci-fi conference. It can be a Comic-Con. It can be the MLA conference. It can be uh, Future Farmers of America conference. But I would like you to describe a conference you would like to go to. Um, if you don't know of a conference in your field, uh, talk about one that you do a little bit of research to find out about. Yeah, maybe ask one of your other professors, one that's in your field. Hey, uh, Dr. Malath, I would like to know what's a conference in my field that I might attend so that I could learn more about the field. Uh, and generally, they will have a conference they can say, oh, well, you would go to this one, right? Um, or if you just put in your field and conference in a Google search, generally you're going to find one, right? So I want you to describe a conference that you would like to go to. And when I say describe, I don't mean just describe what it is and what it does, but also where it would be and what the city would be like and what the food would be like and where you're staying and these kind of things. I want you to imagine yourself there, right? And describe all of the things that make it a great experience to go to that conference, right? Because if you can't imagine yourself at an academic conference, right, then what's the point, right? We have to imagine ourselves as scholars before we can become scholars. Yeah? That's why I tell you, you are all already scholars. Yeah? You're already more educated than most of the people in the world. So, when the world has a problem, sooner or later they're going to come to you as an expert and say, hey, what can we do? And at that moment, you'll either be a scholar or you won't be. But I'm here to tell you right now that you are. So, those are the questions for this week, just the two. What's the problem with cost benefit as a sole decision maker? And describe your ideal conference. Hopefully, I'll see you next week. One last bit of housekeeping. I did notice that most of you watch about half of the lecture video each week. YouTube does give me analytics on that. I can see if you're signed into YouTube who you are. So please watch the whole video. Yeah, it doesn't take very long, but it does give you the ammunition you need to succeed in the class. All right, soapbox coming down. All right, have a good week, and we'll see you next time.